Teresita Sason was a 58-year-old mother living a quiet life in Fort Worth, Texas. She had lived in the neighborhood for around 4 years with her adult son, and no hint of trouble ever drew attention to their home. In April 2025, however, this unassuming family became the center of a horrifying tragedy. Teresita was found deceased in her own bedroom, and the shocking occult slaying would soon grip both the local community and national headlines. In the early morning hours of April 18, 2025, Fort Worth police received an alarming tip. An anonymous 911 caller reported seeing a disturbing image in a Snapchat group chat. The caller reported a photo of a woman lying on the ground, covered in what appeared to be blood. The caller provided the address associated with the sender of that photo, fearing the worst. Officers rushed to the residence on Farmers Branch Street at about 1:30 a.m., arriving to perform a welfare check. Nothing could have prepared them for what they were about to encounter at the quiet suburban home. They were about to come face to face with a vision of hell on earth. When police knocked on the door, Teresita's 23-year-old son answered, and immediately the scene turned surreal. The young man, identified by authorities as Alexander Taylor Valdez, appeared in the doorway with blood smeared on his face, chest, torso, hands, and feet. He was startlingly calm as he spoke to the officers, clutching a Bible the entire time he did so. According to the arresting officers, Valdez greeted them by matter-of-factly stating, quote, "It was an exorcism," as he stepped outside and sat down on the front porch. Officers quickly detained Valdez and began pressing him for an explanation of what was going on at the scene. When asked why he had blood all over him, the son gave an unsettling answer. "I was doing witchcraft to eliminate my mom," he allegedly confessed to the stunned police. The officers then asked if anyone else was inside the house, and Valdez responded plainly, "There is a dead body in there. It's my mom." His words were as chilling as the scene in front of the officers. It sounded as though Valdez truly believed he had been in the middle of some dark ritual. The notion that a mother could be slain by her own child under the pretext of an occult ritual was almost beyond comprehension. Nothing could soften the horror of what police found when they entered the home. In the master bedroom lay the body of Teresita, just like the Snapchat picture showed. She was found on the floor, drenched in blood, with severe trauma visible on her face and upper body. Tragically, officers also discovered the family's dog slain in the same room. Perhaps the dog had attempted to save its owner, or perhaps the animal was yet another cruel sacrifice. Signs of a violent struggle were everywhere, with blood on the walls and carpet, and amidst the chaos, a heavy wooden jewelry box was found broken and heavily stained. Strands of hair matching Teresita's were wedged into the box's splintered edges. Investigators believe this broken jewelry box was the blunt object used to bludgeon the victim. It was a ghastly scene, a level of brutality that would shock even seasoned investigators. Medics arrived and pronounced Teresita dead at the scene, though this was more of a formality given the brutality of the situation. According to the county medical examiner's report, she had perished from blunt force injuries to the head, just as investigators had initially thought. There was no question that this was a slaying, and the suspect was already in custody on the front lawn. As investigators began piecing together the timeline of events, they realized how crucial the social media tip had been. It turned out that after the fatal beating, Valdez had taken a photo of his mother's body and shared it in a Snapchat group chat with friends. In the image, Teresita's lifeless body and the also deceased dog were visible amid the bedroom. This shocking post is what prompted one horrified friend to call 911 and alert the authorities. In fact, A few of Valdez's friends rushed to the house themselves, arriving around the same time as officers. It was an unusual and grisly way for a crime to come to light, but without that Snapchat message, the disturbing act might have remained hidden for longer. Alexander Valdez was placed under arrest at the scene. Once in custody and away from the immediate chaos, he was questioned by Fort Worth detectives. There, however, the 23-year-old suspect refused to answer any further questions and quickly invoked his right to an attorney. Nevertheless, police had more than enough evidence to charge him. By daybreak, Valdez was booked into the county jail, now formally accused of slaying his own mother. In the days following the act, authorities confirmed the charges and began the legal process. A judge set his bond at $750,000, and jail records show Valdez remains in custody, having been unable to secure release. Sadly, the one person in his life who may have been there to bail him out was the exact person he had been accused of slaying. The case remains in its initial stages, and investigators have cautioned that there is still much work to do to understand why this event took place. As for the suspect's bizarre explanation, claiming an exorcism and witchcraft, officials had not offered any further insight into his state of mind. There was no immediate information on whether Valdez had a history of mental illness or unusual religious beliefs. The exorcism claim, as strange as it is, will likely be scrutinized by both prosecutors and any future defense attorneys as the case moves toward trial. While it's too early to tell at this point, some have speculated that this occult claim could be an after-the-fact attempt to build an insanity defense. However, for now, the focus for law enforcement is on building a solid case to ensure justice for Teresita. Hey everyone, it's Jimmy here with a quick reminder to like and subscribe if you appreciate my content. Also, remember to check out my other channels, Lazy Chill Zone and Lazy Chill History, for unsolved mysteries and historical content. 19-year-old Jorden Nebling vanished on a quiet stretch of road in northern South Carolina in the fall of 2020. On October 10th of that year, her car broke down in a rural area outside the small town of Travelers Rest. A concerned local resident noticed the stranded car and spoke with the young woman. Jorden seemed calm and assured the passerby that someone was coming to help her. Moments later, around 1:30 p.m., a car pulled up and Jorden got inside. What happened after that roadside encounter has haunted her family and puzzled investigators for years. That is, until very recently. To those who knew her, Jorden was a charismatic and warm-hearted young woman. But despite this, her early life hadn't been easy, and she and her older sister spent time in foster care. Despite these challenges, Jorden was outgoing and had a way of making friends easily. Like many teenagers, Jorden went through a rebellious phase. She also struggled with substance problems in her mid-teens and got involved in an abusive relationship, which lasted about 2 years. The name of her boyfriend was Tyler Wilkins, a name you'll want to remember going forward. By the time she turned 19, Jorden was determined to turn her life around. In the fall of 2020, she had passed a substance test, landed a new job she was excited about, and was repairing her relationship with her family. For the first time in a long time, things seemed to be looking up for Jorden. In early October 2020, shortly before her disappearance, Jorden was spending time with a new boyfriend she had recently begun dating. On October 9th, she and this man borrowed a car to take a road trip from Travelers Rest to the town of Cowpens, South Carolina, to visit some friends. Later that day, however, the man left Cowpens with another friend, reportedly leaving Jorden to return home on her own, using the borrowed car. Jorden decided to stay overnight and drive back the next day. On October 10th, she began the roughly hour-long drive home toward Traveler's Rest. As fate would have it, the car started having mechanical trouble along Old White Horse Road, a sparsely populated stretch on the outskirts of town. Jorden managed to pull over in front of a house, and a person living there came outside to check on the situation. Jorden explained that her car had broken down, but that she had contacted someone to pick her up. She used her phone to reach out for help, and as fate would have it, the person she called was her ex-boyfriend, Tyler Wilkins, who lived nearby. A witness saw Tyler arrive and saw Jorden stepping into Tyler's car, and from that point on, she simply dropped off the face of the earth. When Jorden's family didn't hear from her for the rest of that weekend, they initially weren't alarmed. Jorden was an adult and had in the past been out of touch for a few days at a time. But as the days stretched into weeks with no word, her older sister grew increasingly concerned. After more than 2 weeks with absolutely no contact, Jorden's sister reached out to her former foster mother for help, and she was immediately alarmed. Jorden had maintained an extremely strong relationship with her former foster mother, with some sources even indicating that she had adopted Jorden. Jorden's biological mother, who Jorden was living with at the time, had not yet reported her missing. She believed that perhaps Jorden had just run off for a while and would eventually come back on her own, but others disagreed and felt that something was wrong. On November 8, 2020, nearly a month after anyone had last seen Jorden, she was finally reported as missing. Sadly, it was only at this point that the Greenville County Sheriff's Office opened an investigation into Jorden Nebling's disappearance. Once law enforcement got involved, they moved quickly to piece together Jorden's last known movements. Investigators learned about the borrowed car breaking down and that Jorden had called her ex-boyfriend for help. 19-year-old Tyler Wilkins became the central figure in those early inquiries as the last person known to have seen her. Deputies brought him in for questioning, and Tyler confirmed the basic story. He acknowledged that he picked Jorden up on the afternoon of October 10th, after her car trouble. He told detectives that he drove her to the house where he was staying. According to Tyler, the two of them got into an argument not long after arriving. Jorden, he claimed, decided to walk away from the house on foot. He said she left angrily and disappeared down the rural road, and he had no idea where she went after that. That was his story, that Jorden walked off into the afternoon and never came back. It was a strange account. If true, it meant Jorden would have been alone, on foot, in a remote area with few houses around, and her family found the story unlikely. They knew Jorden would have called someone for help, or returned home if she could. Law enforcement, too, treated the situation as suspicious. Almost immediately, foul play was suspected in Jorden's disappearance, but there was no hard evidence to pin on anyone. Deputies searched the area around Tyler's residence and other places Jorden was known to visit. They looked for any trace of the missing young woman, a piece of clothing, her cell phone, any sign of a struggle, but found nothing. Investigators even dug up a concrete slab on Tyler's property. This slab was believed to have been poured around the time Jorden vanished, and the authorities thought he might have hidden something beneath it. That search, like many others, turned up no clues. For a time, Jorden Nebling's case went cold, with no arrests and no answers. A shocking and tragic event in November 2022 would end up casting new light on Jorden's case. On the night of November 9th, 2022, Greenville County deputies responding to a call walked into a grisly crime scene at a home on Sawmill Road. Inside, they discovered 22-year-old Clarissa Winchester, who had been reported missing earlier that day. To make matters even more tragic, they found her newborn baby, also deceased. Investigators were horrified to learn that Clarissa's boyfriend, and the father of the infant, was none other than Tyler Wilkins. Evidence indicated that Clarissa had been held captive and brutally slain, and that her infant son had been simply left to perish after not being provided the necessities of life. Wilkins was arrested and charged in relation to these truly heinous crimes. The news sent shockwaves through the community, and for Jorden Nebling's family, the development was especially chilling. The man long suspected of knowing more about Jordan's disappearance was now an accused perpetrator in a revolting case. Many people drew the same conclusion that the family had, believing the coincidence was simply too great. If Tyler Wilkins was capable of this kind of horrific violence, perhaps he had also harmed Jorden back in 2020. Despite the suspicion, however, investigators still lacked concrete proof connecting Wilkins to Jordan's presumed death. Throughout 2023, Tyler remained behind bars awaiting trial, and Jordan's case remained officially unsolved. It wasn't until late 2024 that some measure of justice was delivered in the Clarissa Winchester case, and from there, the dominoes would fall, bringing justice to Jorden too. In September 2024, Tyler Wilkins pleaded guilty to his heinous acts and was sentenced to 45 years in prison for that crime. Yet even as that chapter closed, the mystery of Jorden Nebling's disappearance persisted. Jordan's family still had no answers, no remains to lay to rest, and no closure. Law enforcement, for their part, never gave up on the case. Over the course of more than 4 years, the Greenville County Sheriff's Office had chased every lead they could find regarding Jorden. They combed through forests and fields, interviewed dozens of people, and analyzed phone records and data, all in the hopes of finding evidence of what became of the missing woman. But at the start of 2025, a major break finally arrived. Perhaps understanding he had nothing left to lose, Tyler Wilkins decided to talk. In early 2025, while incarcerated, Wilkins confessed to investigators that he had indeed slain Jorden on that day in October 2020. According to statements later released by authorities, he admitted that he brought her back to her home, as he had initially advised the authorities. Further, he admitted that an intense argument between the two individuals did indeed occur. However, what wasn't true is that she didn't simply wander off his property. Instead, he had slain her. This confession came to no surprise to anyone who heard the initial story and knew of his history of extreme violence. In April 2025, the Greenville County Sheriff's Office publicly announced the development and stated they were charging Tyler Wilkins with the slaying of Jorden. Yet one heartbreaking question remains unanswered. What did Tyler do with her remains? Despite the confession, Wilkins hasn't yet revealed the location of Jorden's body, and searches have so far not recovered her remains.